Thanks for tuning into this episode of Entrepreneurial Impact with Dave Donaldson and myself. And I've got an awesome topic that I want to facilitate with Dave because he went through this journey probably about a year ago. And it's called recruiting. That any business, if you're looking to grow and bring on great talent, you need to recruit. And I guess you could switch out recruiting to attract because no one actually really wants to recruit. They want to attract talent. But your business is going to grow to the level of talent you attract to your organization. And it's also the epitome of who you are. So like the highest level of leadership is somebody that can build other great empire builders and leaders. And that's all going to be through your attraction of talent to your organization, about being able to cast a vision of what the future could hold, but also what that person can achieve and how they can impact others and actually grow a brand, grow a market, grow, agent count, whatever the thing is inside your business. And I think it all stems down to recruiting. And what I find is that most people hate recruiting, and I don't know why, because I think it's one of the best skill sets you could ever have. And when you get good at it, it is fun. So Dave, I forced you into doing recruiting about a year ago. By force, yes.
I think you're being a little soft on the force side, but
Voluntold is probably the best term for it.
We can go with voluntold.
So let's start this journey, right? So let's go down this story, because it's one thing to like talk about recruiting and all that. They could go in and say, "Oh, it's so easy. You just do this, you just do that." But let's actually have that. So let's start with when I forced you into recruiting, because I believed it was the best path for you, for your career, personally and professionally.
No, you did. And I think, and if you look back to the previous week's episode where we were talking about 6 personal perspectives, right? I wasn't purposeful in that. Like, I was entrepreneurial. I could have a conversation with somebody. But honestly, the mindset around, hey, do I want to pick up the phone, reach out to somebody, try to establish a relationship, and ultimately see if they want to come join our organization wasn't something that I was comfortable in, right? So getting comfortable took some time. It wasn't, look, for some people, they have it, right? I can talk to people, but I had to get over the hurdle of, do they want to talk to me? And I think that's a mindset for a lot of people, of picking up the phone and being honest about why you're calling. Takes some time for some people. It's because, to me, I'm a relationship guy. This is where real estate was for me when I was running my business. I was a relationship guy. It took time to develop those relationships. I felt if I'm calling somebody I did not know, right, I had it in my head that I'm bothering them.
So would you say, just because I know you well enough, would you say that it was actually some of the recruiting challenges stem from a lack of confidence?
100%. 100%. I don't know why. I've been in the business 17 years. I've done some really great things, but I think there's a piece or a part of me in the back of my mind that always thinks me to some degree that I'm a fraud, and who am I to tell somebody how to run their business or what they should be doing.
Gotcha. But I want to actually, that might be individual, but a lot with the commonality inside of recruiting that actually stems from confidence.
Yeah.
Now, some of it is fraud, what you just brought up, right? And I think everybody has a form of that. But what I find in recruiting to get over the hump of it is that a lot of people lack confidence in what they are providing as value. That they don't believe in their product, or they don't believe in the service strong enough to recognize that what I'm recruiting you to is actually a better version of.
Here's an interesting thing to that. So for whatever reason, people have tried to recruit me over the years. Mm-hmm. Okay. And actually, I've never said no to a conversation, although I've never really fully entertained the idea of going somewhere else. Mm-hmm. But I remember one time I kept saying no, and other positions kept getting thrown at me in front of the table to the point where I had a conversation. But at the end of the day, I had this realization, is like, I couldn't find myself, and that would have been a recruiting position, right? Running another location for another brokerage. At the end of the day, I found myself that I couldn't comfortably have the conversation to convince somebody to come join me because I didn't believe in that product.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why ultimately at the end of the day, the money was good. The offerings was, there were a lot of great things about it. But I knew that I couldn't sell that, in which what I believed in, which was our organization, that I fully believed in. So the mindset of believing in what I said is there. So that was never the hurdle for me, because I'm passionate about this company and what I can have. The hurdle for me was just my own obstacle of, it was more me than the product.
So if you want to go down that road of you were uncomfortable with like the process of selling something because of relationship or whatever that may be, What was it that got you comfortable in the process of recruiting and attracting talent?
Internalizing the conversations that I wanted to have. I can talk. I can talk about Gary Keller himself could pull me out of the audience, tell me to talk on 10 minutes on just about anything real estate related. And I feel like I'd be pretty comfortable to do that. But the moment I have to stop, listen, and ask questions and know how to move through the landmines of buts that we get all day, that was what was holding me back. That how do I respond to every question? No, you can't. But if you're comfortable enough in what you're trying to say and know what the goal is, which is to get the appointment or get in front of a more established relationship, learning how to ask questions to get them to open up was my challenge.
So what I'm hearing you say then is that there's actually a process behind recruiting, and it was actually learning a process to know that that's the best way to get to the outcome that you want.
Yeah, I was fortunate that I met a guy. Who now?
Fortunate thing or not.
I met a guy who poured into me, right? Yeah, for those listening home, that guy was Joe. But Joe saw something in me and said, hey, let's kind of break through this. So it wasn't just Joe giving directives, say, hey, go recruit and do this, right? It was, let's keep asking the questions about how we do this and why we do this and what does that look like and hammering them home. Now, on the other side of that, you got me to do something that I had not done in a really long time, which was read.
Yep.
I was not an avid reader, and I'm going to be completely honest. Had I not started reading with the veracity that I've started to read over the last couple of years, I don't think I'd been able to get to that level either, right? Because reading gives you more to draw from, right? It gives you more of an understanding of what people are going through. And we actually joke a lot about this, but the different books that we read, what do they have in common? A ton. Yep. They have a ton of things in common. They're just all presented differently. Well, that's exactly the same as having a conversation with somebody. They're hearing, come join us, from any myriad of organizations or people. The question is, do you have enough bandwidth internally to frame it in such a way that they want to listen?
Correct. And I think the thing about recruiting that I've always believed is that there is a process. There's a set base of things. But the other part that I think throws a lot of people off in attracting talent in the recruiting process is that there is a set of parameters that you can go down, but then there's also this gray area that you have to be open to wherever the conversation goes, because you have to be willing to ask questions about the person, about where they want to go, what they want to do, what they want to achieve, and be completely neutral to what they say to you. And if you can stay present in those questions and not try to push your agenda of where you want to take it, maybe it's close the deal or get them to join or whatever the reason is that you're trying to attract them to your organization, if you can truly stay neutral to what they say to you and be present to what they're saying, you're going to ask better questions. And I think the one key, if anything you want to take away from this podcast around recruiting, is the level of questions will dictate the people you attract to your organization, because any high-level person is already going to be driven. They're going to be direct. They're going to already have decisions in their head. So guess what? You telling them what they should do or what they need to do to make themselves better, they're going to say, piss off, is what they're going to say to you.
I think you really kind of hit the spot there. But there's a series of things that you go through. One, you know what you know. So you're going to have a little confidence. I'm going to live in the relationship base until you learn how to ask the right questions, right? And then you're going to go through a period of time where because you are scripted originally, right? And the first time you go through things, if you haven't asked people questions, you're reading from a list. And you're scripted, which is, like, to me, it's like a curse word. Oh my God, you're coming across as scripted. That's what was a fear of mine. But you have to do that, right? You have to have those conversations until you get internalized with those conversations, right? Because then you're not just asking questions, you're asking questions that are applicable to the conversation, and you could jump around in those questions, right? And pull those levers when they're necessary. And then you can react to the questions, right? Because you're not cold in cadence. I'm like, let me ask you this, let me ask you this, let me ask you, okay, I'm done. Would you like to meet? No, then there's a flow to it. And there's a natural beginning and a natural middle and a natural end to then asking for the closing question, which is, when would you like to meet?
I think another one of my wonderful mentors in my professional career, this is how I've always visualized the recruiting process, is that you and the candidate are on this journey. You're on a path, right? And the path is only maybe a foot in front of you. And it's the candidate that's actually painting the picture of where that path goes. Is the path white? Is it black? Is it green? Is it grass around the path? Is it water? Is it sand? Is there trees? Is there mountains? Is there beach? Like, you as the person that's trying to attract the talent to your organization, there's a reason that you're trying to attract them. Is they're already talented, they're already accomplished, they're already like getting things done, and they're self-sufficient. The hardest person to recruit to your organization is the one that's already gainfully crushing it on their own, because they're operators, they already know how to do it. What do they need you for? So if you're sitting down with them and you're saying, hey, well, tell me their path, your ability to stay neutral and ask more questions about, well, what kind of path is it? Is it rocks? Is it really green, or is it aquamarine? Is it dark green? Is it light green? Why is that important to you? What does that do for you? So the level of questions you ask is going to actually give a better vision to that person's about their future, and your ability to ask challenging questions about why is that important and what does that do for you? What path does that take you on if you make that choice? Because more often than not, that operator, that highly impactful person, is living in the moment and building because they're really highly talented, but they actually haven't thought about what they're going towards, what their purpose is, and what they actually matter. And if they can start to see what that path looks clearly, you as the person that's trying to attract them now clearly understands what they want in life. And now you can be in a place to actually create an opportunity that gets them there, or build a great relationship and a consulting perspective to help them get where they want to go, even if your organization's not the platform to do it.
You know, when I think about this now and I look at the questions or how I ask them, how you frame them, and in the beginning, like I was saying, you're trying to get through the questions. You're trying to get to the appointment. Now, yeah. And now when I ask a question, that act of listening is kind of come in. Like, I'll steamroll somebody, but oh, well, hear what you're saying is. So that was something I had to work on, right? Was listen, let them finish, even though I could see where they were going, right? And then keep asking the questions to get them there, and let them try to get. So that's something I'm working on now. Is I'm asking more and more questions. Like I was having one today. I was talking to a lady, and she was saying how great her business was when she was running 2 businesses and raising her children and married and running all over the place, and now her kids are grown and her business has fallen off a cliff, right? And I knew right away what it was, is because she had to be organized to be successful in that moment. Now she's got all kinds of free time, and she's not structured and organized. I couldn't jump there right away without insulting her, but I kind of had to keep probing and kind of get her there to ask questions about what she thought was different now.
And think about this on that same path, that path I was talking about, like, hey, what does that look like? Tell me more. Why is that important? The moment that you jump ahead, like you just talked about, like you recognize you can't do that. If you're on that journey with somebody and they're building the path and they're telling you, hey, Dave, this is what it looks like, and this, and this is why I want to go there. The moment you jump ahead and try to like redirect it or whatever, it's taking like a shepherd's staff and ripping them your way. So if they're on their path going this way and they're telling you all the things they want, and then you start telling them why they're wrong or why they need to go somewhere else, you try to like subliminally redirect the conversation. It's like you're grabbing them with a staff and ripping them onto your path. And the moment you try to rip them onto your path, they will fight you. You won't get in alignment. You'll never recruit. They'll never join your organization, or the relationship won't build, because they're trying to tell you where they want to go, and you have your agenda in the recruitment process. And if you let that block your vision, you're literally going to force them to a path that they're never going to come on with you.
Yeah. And you know what? And you're right. It's not about me. It's about them. And some will get there sooner than later. Some may never get there, but you establish relationships. And it's really, if you kind of look at it in the capacity, it's no different when I'm talking to agents or when I was talking to consumers, right? You meet somebody, sure, occasionally you bump into a person in an open house that's ready to buy today and buy that house, but that's really not that great of a percentage, right? It's usually a much longer journey than that before they're ready to get there. This is the same thing, right? But there's nothing better. And this is the day. This is the day-to-day grind, right? There are things I love about it, and there's some things I still am challenged with. Picking up the phone and calling. I'm working on that. But there's nothing better, and I have a bigger smile on my face when somebody actually connects, and we just have an awesome conversation. And so if you look at one of the last books that we read, And it was basically saying, hey, focus on that moment of success and put smiles on what did you do right before that, what it took to get there, right? And so that's like the thing. Had to make the phone calls to get connected or get scheduled to get the appointment to have the conversation. It made me feel so good.
It's that idea on everyone that you see instant success. You never see the 10, 15 years of work that got you there, right? The other thing that I got two things on like tips and tricks for recruiting, right? So went down this like conceptual way and then Dave's journey. The thing I think everyone needs to take away from like Dave's journey is like it was uncomfortable, but it's a skill set inside of attracting talent that you can use in any type of organization, any type of industry that is highly valuable. Because if you can connect about what people's needs are and how the business can facilitate that need, there's always a demand for it.
Let me pause you there before we jump in. Don't lose your thought. But I think it's also important to recognize that where you were in that journey, right? Because there are a lot of business owners or leaders that set a goal or an expectation from somebody that don't help them to get there. If I didn't have you asking the questions, holding me accountable, right? Asking me what my fears were, right? And staying on top of me, I wouldn't have gotten there, right? So yes, that accountability. Look, you saw to me to get us there, right? Had you just said do it? No, for some people can just go do it. That wasn't in my makeup for that task.
And I think that has to do with like management and leadership skills as well. But that'll be for another day. I think on recruiting, my two biggest tips, well, actually three, because the second and third are more questions. Number one is walking somebody through a positive and negative present and then a positive and negative future. Here's why. Most people make decisions based on emotions. They don't make it on logic. The logic just validates the decision. So it's kind of like, I got to feel good about this. And then once I feel good about it, I'll go look at the numbers or whatever to make sense that I'm making a good decision, right? So when you walk somebody through what's going on great in your life, personal, professional, like it doesn't matter what position you're recruiting them to, you're starting to gain what they value, what they see as going well, what matters to them. And then when you ask them what the negative present is, you're going to find out all the challenges they have in their current life, right? All the things that are nagging them. And you're walking them through basically a needs analysis on their life. So you start to understand the personal, professional. And then you ask them, what do they want? What's the perfect 5-year plan? If everything went perfect exactly to your vision, what would that look like in 5 years? You then identify what matters to them and what they're trying to work towards. So now you know motivation. And then you hit them with, well, what happens if none of that comes to fruition? So you basically just brought somebody on an emotional high, and then you took that high away from them. So now they feel pain. I'd say about 90% of the human population is motivated by pain. They're not motivated by pleasure. They're literally like, I'm going to sit on the couch, and until there's no money in my bank account to pay the mortgage, I'm not going to work. And then the moment they've got $5 in their bank account, and they realize I got to go make enough money to pay the mortgage, now all of a sudden they're hustling. So pain usually gets people into action because they've put themselves into a corner. So when you are like recruiting somebody, being able to let them feel the difference between what an amazing future could look like and what the pain of the future looks like if they don't make a change or they don't have something, right? So there's actually a lot of motivation around negative taking away something. So if you walk somebody through positive present to negative present to positive future to negative future and then bring them back to positive future, they're going to walk away from that meeting and one, they're going to say, I've never thought about my 5-year plan like that. And number two, that guy or gal just asked me questions that nobody in my life has ever asked. So when they walk out, they're not walking out thinking like, I can't wait to join that job or whatever. They're thinking, I just had one of the best conversations of my life and I really got to think about my life. And they're going to come back and text you, call you and be like, no one's ever talked to me like that. And those type of operators, the highly successful ones, they don't need somebody to do their job for them. They need somebody that can actually elevate their thinking, challenge them to a different level. When you give somebody that experience of highs, lows, pains, and positives, like you get them thinking. And once you get them thinking, that's the space that the questions facilitate because you're not going to give anybody an answer. You're not going to determine what they're going to do. So once you have that great conversation, they tell you what they're missing or whatever. I've always left people with these two questions. You're highly successful, Dave. You're going to be successful in whatever you do. The only thing that you can make a difference on is how fast you get there. And I'll tell you the two things that are going to make a difference on the timeline that you attain your goals: who you surround yourself with and the environment you're in. So right now, based on, if I went through that negative and positive future and you told me what here's your goals and here's the things that would happen if you didn't attain those goals, then the only thing that's going to be different is not you, because you're going to be the same Dave. You might, get some better experiences or some better training or something like that. But the real thing that's going to make you highly successful in a faster period of time is who you surround yourself with and what environment you're putting yourself. So the question is, on any type of thing that I'm recruiting somebody to an opportunity, I'm going to lean into what they want, how the company's going to help them get there, and who they're going to become through the people they surround themselves with and the environment they're in.
And that only comes with time, right? That depth, the things that we're still working on, right? To ask the right questions, and it's funny enough, you have to a degree, you have to quickly earn the trust to go in that direction, or you could turn somebody off, right? Yeah. But it's all in how you present and frame the questions and lean into that. And you get a little bit better of saying, hey, can I be honest with you about what I'm hearing from you, or what that looks like for them? Because people, they'll share the positives of how great their business is all day long. But the moment you try to get them to reflect on the negative, they're going to shut down real quick, right? It can get real awkward and real ugly. So, yeah, right, how you ask it, when you bring it to the table, it matters.
So, takeaways on that is just your questions and like your emotional intelligence with people and actually caring enough to be present for all that, I think is the biggest aspect of recruiting that creates that authentic experience. And the only other tip or trick is do not diminish experiential recruiting. And what I mean by that is when you put somebody and give somebody an experience, most recruiting is experiential. They have to feel something. They have to experience something different. So when you're thinking about recruiting, not only do you have to have these great conversations about personal and professional life goals and all that and the job and whatever, you also have to think about like, what experiences do I need to have this person have in the journey? Do I need to go to dinner or breakfast with their spouse, their significant other? Do I need to bring them to a different training? Do I need to have them socially engage with the people they'd be working with? Because those experiences make a difference for how somebody feels about their decision, because it matters.
It does.
So, well, I appreciate you being a little bit vulnerable on your recruiting journey, Dave, on this episode of Entrepreneurial Impact. I hope you guys got a ton of value out of it, and tune in for next week's.